fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so...
You're not getting any younger, so it's time to invest in yourself.
Hey you! Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. A podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives. For a good reason. To make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz. And every week, I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people, just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Welcome back to another episode of You're Not Getting Any Younger. I'm your host, Jen Glantz. Thank you for your ear time today, and thank you for sharing this podcast with your nearest and dearest. As always, come hang out with us in the You're Not Getting Any Younger secret Facebook group and have meaningful conversations with over 1,000 listeners of the show. Today's episode is about heartbreak. What it feels like, how to handle it, and what you should do when you're convinced that you will never ever fall in love again. Amy Chan is our guest this week. She's the founder of the popular relationship and love blog Just My Type, where she fuses together psychology and science to break down the things we experience in love that we hardly ever talk about. In 2017, Amy founded the company Renew Breakup Bootcamp, which takes a scientific and spiritual approach to healing the heart. The love and heartbreak advice that Amy gave in this episode sent chills down my spine. I hope you enjoy. This week's episode is sponsored by my very own book, When You Least Expect It, Stories About Living Life Without a 5-Year Plan. If you're looking for an LOL-worthy summertime read, pick it up on Amazon today for only 99 cents. And thank you so much for coming on the show today, Amy. I think I found out about you 4 years ago. I was looking through my emails to see when I subscribed to Just My Type, and I think it was 2015. And the funny thing is, when I subscribed to your website, I remember thinking, I subscribe to nothing. I won't ever give my email out. As a fellow blogger, I'm just not interested in other bloggers' posts. But something about your blogs 4 years ago pulled me in and made me not ever want to unsubscribe. So what made you start the website Just My Type?
Yeah, so I went through, everything's been spawned because of a breakup. So I was 25 years old and I was in a relationship with this guy who was like this artist, a starving artist, and I bought us an apartment. And then one day he comes home and he's like, I'm not in love with you anymore. I don't feel butterflies. I'm like, what? So it was the first time I wrote about love, and I wrote about what's more important, love or commitment, and what is love. And I used that piece and I actually pitched probably about 100 publications. Most of them ignored me. Some said, you're not a writer. And one gave me a chance. So like, yeah, we'll do one guest post. That turned into a dating column that I wrote for 7 years for a Vancouver daily newspaper. And then I started my own blog to be a website on the psychology behind lust, love, and desire.
To go back a couple of steps, that moment when that boyfriend of yours walked in and said, I don't love you anymore, was that the first time you felt that type of heartbreak?
Yes.
And when that was going through your head, before you later did so many things around heartbreak, what were you thinking? How am I going to cope with this? Because to hear someone say to you, I don't love you anymore, is one of the hardest things to digest.
Yeah. I mean, I immediately went into self-hatred and I'm not sexy enough. What's wrong with me? And, it was really hard, but it was also, there wasn't a lot of anger or anything like that because he was a really good person and, we had ups and downs, but it wasn't a bad relationship. And I think that was a really honest thing to say to me versus drag it out for a lot longer. So, yeah.
It's a mature way of looking at it, right? It's almost like, I feel like breakups are harder when there's nothing wrong because then it's just like, why didn't this work? What kind of perfect do I need? Or do I even need someone who I think is perfect? A lot of people after a breakup, they turn to ice cream, they turn to being depressed, you turn to having a website around love. What gave you the courage to put out there your thought? Because every blog you write has a personal spin on it. You're very honest, and you also admit mistakes you made in the past. So what made you decide to turn your stories into blogs and posts for other people?
Yeah, to me, success is if I can help one other person feel a little less alone, a little more understood, that's success to me. And I have a gift of being able to write. And I have to use that gift to do good in this world. And I wanted to talk about topics that usually come with a lot of shame. You know, rejection, infidelity, not feeling pretty enough. All of these things that we all at some point in our lives probably feel, and nobody wants to talk about it because it's not perfect, especially in this day and age when there's this perception with all the filtering on Instagram and social media that perfect is what people want. And that's what men want. And that's what women want. It's not. It's authentic. And you can't connect. You can't have these bonds and this type of deep love you want if you're not vulnerable and willing to be authentic. And so that's really important to me in all of my pieces, is that there's honesty and raw authenticity in them.
You know, you touched on it. It drives me crazy because sometimes when I'm feeling really down about myself, I find myself on social media, I'm scrolling through Facebook, I'm seeing pictures of what I feel like everyone else's life looks like, which is pure perfection. And then you go back to yourself and you think, well, either I post a fake filtered photo with a caption about how great life is, or I stay silent. And I think having the courage to go in between and say, you know, I'm over what happened and here's the mistakes I made, that's a hard thing to do. And you mentioned you have a gift for writing. You tried to pitch your article to 100 places, and most people said no to you. Here you are facing a breakup, and now you're facing a rejection with a hobby that you love. How did you keep on going until you got that yes?
Yeah, I believe in business, I always looked at rejection as a numbers game. So 100 was really a magic number for me because you just need one person to give you a chance. And so if someone rejected me or didn't say, you know, respond, I was like, okay, fine. The trickiest and the challenging thing was to actually apply that same mentality to dating and love. Because I think it's really easy to, if you get rejected from someone, whether it's a date or it's a breakup, to be like, oh my gosh, and like retreat back in as if you're like a snail and you don't want to go back out again. But it's also a numbers game. And the majority of people you date aren't meant to be your destination. So if we can go in with that mentality, whether we're going on dates, whether we're going online, and make our intention connection, learning something, curiosity, growth, versus, oh my God, are you going to be the one? I think it would be so much more fun and an adventure versus something we dread doing.
Okay, you are 100% right. And I didn't believe that to be true until I did an experiment in my own life where I went on 14 first dates in 1 month to A, cure myself from putting so much pressure on the first date, and B, also get in the habit of just meeting people and connecting with them. Why are we so trained to put so much pressure on that first date, to think in our head, is this person going to be the one?
I feel that we put too much emphasis on chemistry, and love can be sparked for many different ways. So there's 3 mating drives in the brain that create love. There's lust, which is driven from testosterone. There's attraction, which is driven by dopamine. It's a very addictive, feel-good stuff. And then there's bonding and attachment, which is fueled by oxytocin and vasopressin. Now, people think that if there's no lust, or there's an order, it has to be lust and then attraction and then attachment. If it doesn't go that way, they're like, oh my God, this is not going to work. But really, when you look at it, and there's many studies on it, is it can actually be sparked in the opposite order. That's why you might know a friend who they've been friends for a long time and suddenly they wanted to have sex with each other. Now they're together. So there's many different ways of how it can happen. And if we're stuck on this one model of this is how it should be, and this is how the courtship should be, and this is how the plan should be, and, you know, date to marry, get married, have kids, live happily ever after, I think that's when we create a lot of suffering in our lives.
I feel like it's what surrounds us as we grow up. You know, like I feel like influences from movies and books and things like that tell us that's how it should be. And then you become a certain age, you go on your first date, you fall in love, you get a heartbreak, and you just feel like it should be like what everyone tells you it should be. I think that's a problem with love and marriage, is that you're looking for that partner and you're either A, comparing yourself to everybody around you, or B, thinking, well, they don't check every single item off of this box on my list, so I can't pursue them. Mm-hmm. How do we get a better and truer understanding of what love is and what we're supposed to be looking for?
So, yeah, this is a great question. I feel first we need to talk about chemistry and our chemistry radar. And a lot of people have a chemistry radar that's pointing in the wrong direction. And if you grew up in a household and your childhood was filled with a model of love that was neglect or abuse or chaos, it is quite likely that you have associated love with these things. And so growing up, it's probably likely that when you have those same emotions sparked, it's familiar to you, so you think that's love. And I'm a perfect example of that. My father was unavailable. Business guy, was never around physically or emotionally. I had to earn love and approval, which I still never was able to get. Nothing was ever good enough. And so the men that I would have immediate attraction towards and this amazing chemistry were men who were unavailable, who would put me fifth on the totem pole, and I had to fight for their attention and time. And so after a while, I looked at it and I said, wait a minute, the common denominator is me and the people I am choosing. And so I realized I need to rewire my chemistry. And that's when I started to say, okay, I'm going to be open-minded to going out with guys that I don't have immediate chemistry with, but I have compatibility with. And I started to rewire my chemistry radar to a place now where if someone shows signs of unavailability or is hot and cold or is dismissive, I don't find that a turn on. I don't go, oh my God, like I want more of that. I go, bye, see you later. I have way too much self-worth for me to even bother with that. And when someone is available, I go, wow, like I really appreciate that. And it's important with this whole idea of a list, which is the other part of your question. I speak to so many people and their list is like, well, they have to be 5'11", financially really wealthy, a CEO, all these things. And it's so many of those things it's like an ego transaction. And so it's like my ego is looking out for your ego and they're also drawn to you for the same things. Like, is she pretty? Is she fit? Is she all these things? And you have this transaction and it doesn't go anywhere, or you get together and eventually it falls apart because you're not bonding with your soul. And I call these unconscious relationships. It's when my wounds meet your wounds, and it's two children trying to dance and do this thing together, and then it blows up. And I deal with the aftermath at my breakup bootcamp. And so I feel that instead of having this list, I encourage anyone who's listening, try a different plan. Try a different approach. Maybe try going on a date with someone who's 5'6", if you only dated guys who are 6 feet tall. Maybe instead of finance guys, you date an artist. And instead of looking at, oh, well, how does this look on paper? What do people think of me? Really stop and ask yourself, how does this feel? Does my heart feel nurtured? Is there an ease of communication? Is there flow? And pay attention to that, because your relationships now, we're not the same as our grandparents' generation. We're not here in relationships to survive. We're here to choose another partner so that we can really live and be our fullest potential. And that requires an emotional connection.
I have talked to so many relationship experts in my life, and I don't think I've ever heard anything as true as what you said. I think that when people ask the question of what are you looking for, the first thing people say is, I want a guy who looks like this, who acts like this, who does this. You don't know. I think it's important to remember that humans are humans, and you might think that you have met similar people to who you should be with, but you might go on a date with a complete stranger who has different hobbies, different career paths who you fall in love with, so you don't even know.
Yeah.
And I think it's like what you said, date different kinds of people.
Yeah.
Really, when I did my experiment of the 14 first dates in a month, I said yes to every single person who asked me out. I didn't look at their profile. I didn't message them too much. I met them in person and I had a conversation with them. And that was a game changer to break down what I was possibly looking for and also what I was judging people on. Because whatever you look like on paper isn't who you are inside.
Yeah.
People describe you as a relationship expert whose work is like that of a scientific Carrie Bradshaw. Tell us more about how your work is the fusion between psychology and science.
I believe that one of my gifts is that I'm a translator of sorts. And so I'm able to dive into the studies of from neuroplasticity to psychology to consciousness and distill it in a way that regular people can understand. And I feel that my content is very relatable, and I infuse a lot of personal narrative as well in order to have content that connects with people. So that's my jam.
Really cool. And through this website, through what you've been doing in love, last year, a couple years ago, you started a Renew Breakup Bootcamp. What was that started about? Why did you choose to start that? Yeah,
so my second relationship was in Vancouver, and it was 7 years ago. I was dating a guy I thought I would marry, and he really was I think my real first adult love. The other ones I don't think count. And we planned our future together, and that relationship fell apart very suddenly one day, and I was traumatized. And I did everything I could to heal, yoga, therapy, Mexico retreats, and I couldn't find anything that was focused on the type of pain I was going through. And my friends, as much as they loved me, weren't equipped to give me advice. And at a time, they just got really frustrated and were like, Amy, just get over it, which was so piercing and so full of shame because I already felt so stupid. Of course I wanted to get over it. I'm an achiever. I should do A plus B equals C, and nothing was working. And so after a period of time of doing everything I could to heal, I finally one day, about 1.5 years later, I was telling the story to my friend about what happened, and I was still filled with so much anger and resentment. And he stopped me and he said, so Amy, does this story serve you? And I said, well, no. And he's like, well, can you think of a time when he was kind and he was loving and trustworthy? And tell me some examples. I'm like, well, there was this time, and this time I started smiling and laughing. And then it dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, in the last 1.5 years, all I could see was the darkness and the anger, and everything faded away. And you believe whatever you want to believe. You will find evidence to create that and validate that belief system. And I realized that you may not be able to change the events of your history, but you can choose to change the story you attach to those events. I went home that day and I wrote him a letter of my accountability, of compassion, of understanding that he tried the best that he knew how at the time. I forgave him. I let him go. I looked at the blank canvas I had for my life and that I could create the life and love and business that I wanted to create. And I did that. I moved to New York. I created this beautiful life. And now I have a company, Renew Breakup Bootcamp. We take a scientific and spiritual approach to healing the heart. I bring a team of 10 facilitators from psychologists, mind hackers, tantra teachers, dominatrixes, and we help people go through this really what could feel like a traumatic time, but really a beautiful opportunity to create the next chapter of life, empowered and inspired.
It's incredible the things that come out of breakups, especially for you.
Yeah.
Game changers. That letter that you wrote, did you mail it to him or did you keep that to yourself?
No, I mailed it to him. It was on beautiful pink French stationery. And just so you know, we're really, really good friends now. So shout out to you, Arash.
That's so interesting that you actually sent that to him. Were you hoping that it would sort of put closure on the relationship so that both of you can move on? I mean, what were you hoping when you put that in the mail?
Absolutely not. I have learned that closure is an inside job. And when I didn't think this, I was constantly trying to look for clues, looking at more articles, trying to figure out and make sense of something. There was no apology, no amount of flowers that could give me the closure I was seeking. It's an insatiable pit. And closure is only something you can give yourself when you actually process the emotions in a healthy way. You accept and you let go and you forgive and you find the meaning in it. And when you're able to do that, then you get to a place of peace. And that letter was not written so that he could react. I didn't care. But for me, it was important, especially since for the last year and a half, I was just insulting him and putting so much hateful, negative energy towards him that, I had some compassion and that I was sorry as well.
And it takes so much out of you when you hate a person that you're not even in the same world with anymore, Then you're the one that's suffering. Well, who knows what the heck they're doing. Breakup pain can be one of the worst feelings in the world. I think it might be something that universally all of us go through at some point in our life. How would you describe what breakup pain feels like?
It feels like grieving the loss of someone because you really are. And it's important to know that because then you don't think you're going crazy. If they were to do a fMRI scan on your brain, and they've done the studies of this, people going through a breakup, they showed activity in the part of the brain as a heroin addict fiending for their next fix. You're physically in withdrawal. So you're going to have the symptoms of withdrawal, complete sadness, depression, anxiety, and then a cycle of anger, and then feeling like you're fine, and then dropping back down. And so it's a whirlwind of emotions, and this is completely normal. Now, how long you stay in those emotions and the things that you're doing, such as rumination, checking your social media, that keep you in a prolonged state of suffering, that's another story. And there's tools you can learn in order to self-soothe, to emotionally regulate, to allow yourself to feel the emotions, not suppress them, but also move through them. And I believe that all of these skills, from self-love, resilience, they are muscles that you build. You need to learn the tools and you need to practice them, and then you get better at it.
So true. What do you think that you lose the most in a breakup? What's lost?
Identity, because you're not only mourning the person and the relationship, you're mourning the dreams of the future.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so painful because it's so true.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's women or both women and men, but you put a lot of emphasis on what's going to happen in the future of that relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's normal. You want to build a life with someone. Yeah. Where I think we can become healthier is looking at how much identity we are putting in the relationship as a defining and validating factor in our lives. And before, when I didn't know any better, I was codependent. I had all these wounds from childhood, and I wanted a man to fill that up for me. And so I put so much of my identity in him and us because that's all I knew how. I thought that's what made me a person. And I would orbit around the relationship. So when the relationship was gone, of course, I was completely broken. And now I understand, do not let any one thing be your everything, whether it's a job, whether it's a person, your home. And now I look at it as I am in the center of my universe. All these amazing things, whether it's my business, my blog, a relationship, they're orbiting around me. If one's plucked out, as life happens, it inevitably will, I might lose my balance, but I won't have the rug completely pulled out from underneath me. And when I'm going to enter a relationship, I know the tools now to not let that gradual, step-by-step, me being full, empowered me to okay, I'll just not see my friends this weekend. Okay, I won't work out today because I want to see you. I'm not going to do that because I now have learned the lesson from the past.
It's a tough mistake to make again and again and again, but I almost think you have to make those mistakes that you're wise enough to know that, I almost feel like you have to go through those motions so that you know that breakups they can be negative, but what do you gain in a breakup?
What you gain, I believe, is a choice that you make. And the reason why I even started this bootcamp was because I feel that after a breakup, there's two paths. One is you can use that to create a belief system or to confirm a belief system that love is painful. Men are bad. Women are terrible. They're going to leave you and become jaded, and you guard your heart. And I feel that a broken heart is like a weapon. When you haven't mended your heart, you will go out and you will hurt other people. When you think about anyone that has ever hurt you in a relationship, it's because they were hurt. Either they were hurt from childhood or the ex or something like that. Or you can say, oh my gosh, what is a lesson I can learn here about my own my own patterns, my own wounds, and how can I evolve from this? How can I reframe this and shift it and change it from a story of victimization to this is an opportunity for me, and use that as, okay, I have an opportunity. I have a blank canvas. How do I want to paint that? Now I know that what I don't want. How is that going to teach me more about what I do want?
Renew Breakup Bootcamp is something that I wish existed years ago, and I went through some of my breakups, but it's such a wonderful website to explore. The best part of the website, I think, is the FAQs, because they're questions that everyone would have in their mind, but I'm also super curious to know the answers to them. And one of the questions is, who is this right for? And that's a general question in general. How do you know you're ready to heal, to get over a person, to come to Renew Breakup Bootcamp? How do you know you're ready?
So you are ready when you are sick and tired of the pain, the suffering, and the same patterns that are not getting you to the place that you want. And people think that the breakup bootcamp is about the ex, and what they learn quickly when they arrive there, that it has nothing to do with the ex. And our first rule is there's absolutely no man bashing. We are not there to connect on pain. We are not there to get into a rabbit hole about how terrible the person was. We are there to extract data from our exes to learn about ourselves so that we can rewire our subconscious patterns so that we can create the healthy love that we want. And so about 30% of the women are not in breakups at all, but they have patterns and they want to break them. Some of them are in a relationship still and they aren't able to get out of it. Some are newly broken up or divorced from many years ago, and they know that they're bringing in baggage from the past into their current relationships. And I mean, the last one, I had a woman, she got a sperm donor and she was pregnant with twins. And she's like, I want to, once I give birth, I actually want to clear some of these patterns. And she hadn't dated for many years. And so it's really right for the person who is just sick of and tired of the same patterns, sick of crossing that same bridge over and over again and not learning the lesson.
What would you say to a person who is stuck in those patterns, who is breaking up with somebody, crawling back to them, or breaking up with somebody and they can't get over it? They don't want to get over it. They want to be stuck in this miserable phase.
It's challenging to teach someone to want to change. And I phone screen every single person that comes. Not everyone is a fit for the retreat. And if I feel that they actually don't want to let go, they haven't hit that tipping point, I tell them that it's not the right time for them. Because once someone's made the decision of, I've hit a tipping point, I'm sick of this, there's a life force energy and usually pain is an excellent catalyst for this. That we have a whole team that can help guide you across the bridge, right? We will give you the tools, we'll give you the support, but if you haven't come up with that decision, nobody can teach you that.
Right, and I think you wrote one of the FAQs was about, what's going to happen when I leave? Am I going to be healed? And you were very honest about that. So what is the answer to that? If someone comes to this boot camp, what's going to happen after?
There is no magic bullet. Or magic pill. And anyone who ever says, do this program, you're going to be great. Do ayahuasca and your life is going to be forever changed and healed. They're fucking they're bullshitting you. Because healing, self-growth, evolution, we are all students in it, and this journey is a lifetime. And that's what makes it so exciting. I learn something new every single time. And some are the messages I've been hearing like every single time at the boot camp. But sometimes I'm only ready for it at that moment. And so after the boot camp, there is a high. Everyone's feeling inspired, empowered, excited for their future. And there is a group of women, there's like WhatsApp chats, there's like monthly meetings. So there is a support system of other women who are also in that journey with you. And it's a very inspiring, supportive, safe space. And I feel that whether you're reading a book or you come to my boot camp, that's what you really have to think about is like, what are the one or two seeds of wisdom right now that I can apply? And then focus your attention on, okay, it's attachment theory. I have an anxious attachment style. All right, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to start reading more about this. I'm going to have an accountability partner every time I'm triggered. You do little things that seem insignificant, and you do those things every single day. And afterwards, you create a new pattern that replaces an old one. Unfortunately, that's how it works. It's hard work.
And that's the truth. I mean, I think people who think they're going to read a book or go to a weekend and be magically changed, like you said, doesn't happen like that. It's the same with weight loss. You can't just take I mean, you can take a pill, but you can't just have your weight fall off of you. You have to put in the hard work. You mentioned a little bit ago that last breakup you had, you turned to a lot of friends and vented to them. I think turning to people in your life is the first step you take when you go through a breakup, but it's not always the best.
Right.
If you are a friend who's listening to another friend vent to you about an ex, what should you do? What should you say to point them in the right direction? Because sometimes we just assume a good friend is someone who's going to sit there and bitch with us and talk badly about that person with us.
Yeah, so connecting on pain is something I find a lot of people do. And when I've witnessed myself, like women getting together or men getting together, and it's like, oh my God, what an asshole, he ghosted you. And it's like this crazy rabbit hole of negativity. And when you leave that, you don't feel better. You feel awful and you feel pissed off and upset. And that's not the result that we want. And so I feel that if you are a friend, you need to create a safe space for that other person where they don't feel judged and that they feel seen and that they feel acknowledged. And when they go off on complete tangents, I feel that just nudging them to find a silver lining or encouraging them to do something to stop ruminating. Like, offer like, hey, you know what? Let's just do this dance class together. And for that 1 hour, that person's mind is off it. And that is something that is helping. And don't tell them, just get over it. It's the absolute fucking worst. There's so much shame in that. And someone who's going through a breakup is already feeling so much shame, especially when you're an achiever. You have this extra layer of shame because you feel that, well, you know, I should just be able to get over this. What's wrong with me? In work, I'm able to do these things and get over it. And you feel so stupid. And that doesn't actually help you grow past that pain.
No, it's embarrassing. Like, sometimes breakups can feel super embarrassing, especially when people around you thought everything was going so well. And you sort of had an inkling that it wasn't. It's embarrassing to admit that to people, especially the world we live in. I mean, you can easily find out someone's relationship status by their social media. Nothing's a secret anymore.
Yeah.
What would you say? I mean, you are an expert in this topic, but are there a couple of things that you would give advice to a person who just broke up with somebody? What should they do in the first week of that breakup?
Yes. So a common tendency after a breakup is a loss of appetite. And this is because your body is in survival mode. And so it's actually focusing its attention on making the other parts of your body survive. Because you have increased cortisol levels and all these like negative, like stressful hormones in you. So it's actually just trying to like get back to homeostasis. So because of that, the attention on your hunger starts to minimize. And that's why you might feel absolutely zero appetite. Now, if you're not eating and you're not sleeping, that will affect you emotionally. It's completely correlated. So drink a green smoothie if you need to every day. Force yourself to have something because you cannot even start repairing or mending your heart and your spirit and your soul if your body's out of whack. That's number one. Number two is you need to exercise. So you need the endorphins to counter all those other negative chemicals that are in your body. So the last thing you want to do is exercise, is see people, and you need to do all those things that your body is telling you to not do. Because your body's going to tell you to stay in bed, curl up, don't eat, don't talk to anyone, feel ashamed, ruminate in sad songs, and just keep feeling it more and more. And that's exactly what you should not be doing. So do the opposite of that. You need to be around people where you feel safe and you feel loved, because that's also giving a supply of dopamine. You're in a complete dopamine depletion after the breakup. And the source of your dopamine, which used to be your partner, whether it was that text or that hug or that phone call, that's no longer there. So you need to find other places to start getting it from.
That's great advice, because you're so right. After a breakup, all you want to do is curl up in the ball, not talk to anybody, throw your phone across the room, just be by yourself. But you're right. You have to sort of trick your mind into doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Because how long can you sulk in it before it just becomes just so painful and you make bad decisions?
Mm-hmm.
Bad decisions can be anything from stalking their social media, texting them. In this social-driven world we live in, how do we really disconnect from a person after we break up with them or they break up with us?
I feel that one way to do it is actually letting the person know that I'm going to remove you off of social media. And this is not because, and this is if you're on amicable terms, right? Of course, if it ended really poorly, that's the last thing you want to do. But that's one thing you can do. You can both have a joint agreement that we're going to delete each other off social media for a period of time, because what needs to happen is you have neural circuitry that has been wired together for such a long time. And so every single time you're reaching out and you're looking at his Instagram feed, you're just continuously going back to those neural pathways. So in order for you to create new neural pathways of a life without that person, you actually need to like starve those old neural pathways. And so every time you make contact, every time you have makeup sex, you're actually just going back to like many, many steps. And so it depends. Like, do you want to take that slow rip of the Band-Aid and that's going to extend the period of mourning? Or do you want to just rip it off and make it, mourn it and move forward? So yes, and when you're craving to look at his social media or his friend's social media, ask yourself this: am I being kind to myself? And I swear sometimes that's all it took for me to be like, this is not kind to myself. I'm going to stop.
Is it ever okay in the future, in years after, to check up on them on social media?
I think it just depends, right? Like, if it depends on why. I've done it before, but it didn't really lead to anything. If you still have these crazy feelings for the person, it might not be, because why do you want to see that he's moved on with a girl that looks like a model? Like, what's that going to do to you? So again, ask yourself the question, am I being kind?
Yeah. I feel like that's something that people, including myself, should put on a sticky note and put on their computer,
right,
put on their phone as like a checkpoint before you make that mistake, because it certainly can be painful. Amy, you are amazing. I want to end with a quick lightning fire round. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and feel free to respond with whatever comes to mind. When you were a kid, what did you want to grow up to become?
A fashion designer.
Ooh, what's your dream job now?
Doing what I do now.
What advice would you give yourself at age 22, graduating from college?
You're not going to marry him. Stop focusing all your attention on him.
What advice would you give yourself now that you wish you would actually listen to?
Oh my. Be patient.
What's the best advice anyone has ever given you?
Focus.
What's the number one thing you want to feel an urgent desire to accomplish this year?
I'm I'm working on my book, so I would like to be halfway done my book by the end of the year.
How exciting. Fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so...
You're not getting any younger, so it's time to invest in yourself and create the healing, the tools that you need so that you can create internal shifts, so that you can finally experience external shifts of outcome.
Amy, you are so incredible. Please tell our listeners where they can find more about you.
Yeah, so you can check out my website, renewbreakupbootcamp.com, or my blog is justmytype.ca, and you can follow me on Instagram at Miss Amy Chan, so MISSAMYCHN.
Awesome, and we'll link to all of that on anyyounger.com. Amy, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Hey you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.